again, everybody. Let's get into another r/Let's Not Meet. I hope you're all enjoying these. If you are, don't forget to smash the like and subscribe buttons and let me know what else you want me to narrate down in the comments. Without further ado, let's get into the story. The Man in the Warehouse. Quick note, while I wrote this in a story/book format, in fact, it's a true story, and the dialogue is as close as I can get to accurate with my memory of something that happened over a decade ago. Anywho, here goes. It was 2015 and I was interning in New York City for a small independent fashion designer. Because she didn't have much money, her office was tucked inside of one of those converted warehouse buildings shared by a dozen of other creatives. Painters, designers, sculptors, photographers. The warehouse had a sort of backrooms vibe, and it always smelled faintly of coffee, paint, and old fabric. It was very late at night and the place was nearly empty. As it was fashion week and my boss's fashion show was the next day, I was expected to work all night. Gotta love shitty unpaid internships. Anyways, I'd been hunched over a table in the shared space for hours, finishing last-minute alterations. My boss and her stylist were in her private office, somewhere down the dimly lit hallway, and I was alone. The only sound was the buzz of the fluorescent lights overhead, when all of a sudden, I heard an unfamiliar voice break the silence. "Wow. You've been bending over that table all day, huh?" My hand froze mid-stitch. I looked up to see a man standing a few feet away in the doorway opposite me. He was in his late 50s, maybe. I didn't recognize him. He had a coy smile across his lips and eyes that lingered too long. I laughed out of reflex more than anything. Yeah, it's fashion week. A lot to finish before tomorrow. He smiled, slow and deliberate. "Oh, wow. So you're a fashion designer?" "Trying to be," I said, instantly shifting into an eager intern mode. "Still in school, this is my first real internship." He stepped closer, closing the space between us with every word. "That's impressive. Do you have a portfolio?" The building was full of really talented artists, some famous even. Once I'd met an Emmy-winning costume designer there, so when this man asked about my work, I figured this was the perfect opportunity to try and network. I wanted to look confident and professional. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through my senior thesis, a collection inspired by entanglement and confinement. Ideas drawn from the way fabric wraps around your body. It had touches of BDSM aesthetic, but mostly it was conceptual, about the feeling of being trapped, bound. I was thinking about how sheets twist around you when you can't sleep, I explained, my enthusiasm spilling out before I could stop myself. He leaned in closer, close enough that I could feel him hovering over me. I could feel his eyes on me. He wasn't looking at my art. Not at all. He murmured. "You're so cute. Do you know that?" I froze. My mind took half a second to catch up before I looked up. His face was right next to mine, only a breath away. I could feel my stomach drop. Before I could move away, he leaned in and pressed a slow, wet, open-mouth kiss on my cheek. My body went rigid. Then I felt his breath against my ear as he whispered, "I have some duct tape in my office. We could have a little fun if you want." The air in the room seemed to have been sucked out, and for one long, awful second I stared back at him in disbelief. "No," I managed to stammer, coming up with the first excuse I could think of. "I really have way too much work to do. Thank you, though." Barely above a whisper, leave it to a woman who grew up in the early 2000s to thank a man for harassing her. Am I right? He chuckled, standing too close for too long. "If you change your mind," he said softly, "I'm down the hall." I could tell that he was reveling in the way I squirmed, and how unsafe and uncomfortable he made me feel. Then, just like that, he turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing off the concrete until they faded completely. The silence he left behind was deafening. My hands started shaking. Tears blurred my vision before I knew they were coming. I bolted to my boss's office, half expecting the creepy man to appear again in the doorway. When I told her and the stylist what happened, they exchanged that typical look, half judgment, half irritation. "Well," my boss said, like she was explaining something obvious, "you shouldn't be showing that kind of work to strange men, especially that BDSM stuff." I couldn't believe it. Somehow I was the one being blamed, as if it wasn't obviously his plan all along to prey on me in that way. As if it was my fault a man in his 50s couldn't stop himself from being a creep around an early 20-something intern. It's been over a decade, but sometimes I still see his face. That coy, lingering smile plastered on in perverted delight. I wonder how long he'd been watching me before he decided the warehouse was empty enough to approach me, to touch me. Hours? Days? Weeks? I guess I'll never know. But yeah, creepy warehouse dude, let's not meet. Man, that's, as bad as I hate to say it, that sounds like an absolute Taco Tuesday story. Some young thing being creeped on by an older man. It's a fucked up world we live in. It really is. But let's get into the comments. Your boss and the stylist could have and should have warned you about the possibility of that creep slithering around your area in the first damn place. Then blowing it off like it was no big damn deal clearly showed that they didn't give a damn about you and your safety. How long was it before you left that place? There were a lot of dams in that comment. OP responds with, "Totally. I'm sad to say that I worked for her, for free, for way too long after this. I used to be a pretty big pushover, and she was very good at being toxic one second and manipulatively loving the next. Usually in order to get something from me. She still calls me from time to time, hoping to get free work from me or even get a recommendation from me. I now am more successful than her, and she's been under/unemployed for years. Karma? But I ignore her." Another commenter responds, "You were not safe the moment that creep decided to approach you after clearly monitoring you for a time. Ridiculous of your former boss to try to explain a workplace safety issue away by displacing the blame onto you. Ye oldie but goodie, but your skirt was too short. Crap. Because bad things don't happen to well-behaved ladies. Bullshit. Glad nothing else happened to you, but sorry this did happen at all." And the OP responds, "Yeah, in a lot of ways, the way they reacted to the situation was more painful. Honestly, in most of my SA/harassment experiences, the women I told were awful, and it's so sad. I was SA'd when I was 19 in my dorm by now an ex-guy friend, and when I told my best friend, she told me to get over it. She's now semi-famous and has tattooed Ariana Grande, and is always talking about women supporting women." Jeez, that sounds about right. Say one thing and do the other. People are sick like that, aren't they? But as of right now, that's the end of really anything that's been posted to this particular story. So, thanks for listening, and OP, thanks for sharing your story with us. Again, if you like what you've heard and want to hear some more stuff or see any of the other things I do, please hit that like and subscribe button independently. And, let us know what you thought of the story down in the comments, and any other stories you may want me to narrate or anything like that. Also, let me know. As always, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.